raining outside. It's monsoon season in Arizona, so we're going to be inside today. I'm going to be making a seared chicken breast with lemon zest and a little bit of garlic. We're going to do roasted Poppyseed sweet potatoes with caramelized mushrooms and crispy Brussels sprouts. We're going to finish that all off with a beautiful pan sauce. We're going to do two unique garnishes today. One that's a sweet potato and rice chip, and the other that's going to be a lemon espuma. So let's get going. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my sweet potatoes because they're going to take the longest out of everything. What I've done here is cut these sweet potatoes, peeled them and cut them into these nice rounds, taken the tips and edges off, and I have actually used them for our sweet potato and rice garnish. We'll get to this in just a second. Again, no waste in the kitchen whatsoever when possible. That is a motto that every chef should live by. So for these sweet potatoes, got them in a bowl here. I'm going to do some walnut oil with some lemon zest. Help brighten up that sweet potato flavor. And then I have a half a teaspoon here that is mixed with a little pinch of nutmeg and poppy seeds. Sprinkle them over. We're going to do a nice pinch of salt and pepper. I'm going to do these all coated up. All nicely, beautifully coated. The poppy seeds are going to be really, really nice on this, especially with the lemon. I'm going to get these on here just gently. I want to keep them nice and coated. Now, you can do this with sweet potatoes that are diced, any kind of cut. I'm doing rounds for this because I'm going to make a nice plate today. So I've spaced them apart, and the great thing about this is that we peeled them previously is that they're going to keep their color and almost form a nice skin around them. So it's going to protect the inside of the sweet potato, and it's going to be really, really smooth and creamy when we go to cut into these when you're eating it. The poppy seeds on here are going to give it a nice little pop, poppy seeds, and they're going to go very well with the lemon and those subtle floral flavors that sweet potatoes tend to have. So we're going to go into the oven at a very low temperature, about 300 degrees for, I would say, about an hour and a half to 2 hours. You about check it about an hour, and it'll give you a better gauge of time. It's going to depend on your sweet potato, when they were harvested, what the moisture content is, your oven, etc. So we're going to do about an hour and then check them. I'm going to say about an hour and a half, 2 hours on these. So 300 degrees into the oven. Okay, so now here, normally we would do garnishes last because they don't take a lot of time, but this garnish needs to actually cook for quite a bit of time. I would say about 30 to 40 minutes at least for the rice. So we have 4 ounces of rice, 2.5 ounces of peeled sweet potato, 16 ounces of water, and a pinch of salt. I would say about half a teaspoon, nice big pinch of salt. And what we're going to do is we're going to get this onto the stove. I'm going to cook this down pretty much till the rice becomes glutinous and the sweet potatoes break down, and then we're going to blend it all up, cook it some more, and then it's going to become a paste which we're going to smear very, very thinly on a still pat, dry out, and then fry. So right now, onto the stove, and let's cook these. Medium-high heat. Simmer these until until the rice has absorbed most of the water and has become glutinous and goopy. This is sweet glutinous rice that we're using for this, so this should be perfect for what we're going to do. So onto the stove. So a lot of people aren't very familiar with how to clean up a chicken breast like this and make it go from this to this. Today I've cleaned them up and I'm going to take the top and bottom off of the chicken breast. And we're going to be shaping it under cling film or saran wrap. We're going to be shaping it and all that. So before we do all that, most people need to learn how to clean up a chicken breast. Now typically from the store, when you get this, the supermarket butcher for your mainstream supermarkets will take it down to the point of this, where they've broken the breast from a double breast into one. They're not really going to clean any of this fat and stuff up unless you ask them to, and typically when you just buy a package, it's going to come like this. So with a boning knife, or I have a utility knife right here, you're going to want to clean the chicken up. Now first things first, top, bottom, want to flip this over. That's going to give you a good view of the back side of the chicken breast where it adheres to the rib cage and the carcass of the chicken. So this sinew and tissue right here and fat, that needs to come off. And right over here, typically these are the two places that always have it. Right here and right here. So main thing is what you want to do first is, it doesn't really matter, but I like to go after this first. So what I like to do is come in here, nice little, get right under that, there you go. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to avoid an excess waste. So then after I've done that, you can see all that tissue is hanging. I'm just gonna go like this and have it keep its natural shape. So this, you can save this for stock, you can save this for broth, you can save this for different stuffings, or if you're making a reduction, a chicken gloss, lots of chicken flavor will come from this. There's still chicken here, but we don't want it in our chicken breast. So I will put this to the side. So now that I've taken that off, you can see there's nothing really left there. Okay, and then this part. So you want to try to keep on as much as you can. Again, the idea here is not to be super fast unless you're working as a butcher. And you want to retain majority of what is on the chicken. Like a little blood vessel here. Try to get that out of there. Okay. Now we are pretty much cleaned up. Could you take this a little further? Yes, you could shave this down and make it all one piece. The tenders are not on here. They're taken off of these chicken breasts. One more thing on the top, you see this membrane right here. You're going to want to get that off of there. Okay. All right. Okay. So here's all our waste. Here's our beautifully cleaned up chicken breast. And why do we do this? Well, one, because of presentation. You know, we want our chicken to look good. And two, when you go to sear, this is going to keep its shape. And keeping its shape makes the chicken cook more evenly. It allows it to brown more evenly. And overall, it just looks good. And as far as texture goes, this sinew and tissue is not a pleasant texture when you want something just like a clean white chicken breast. It's not a texture that everybody likes. Maybe in some other countries, yeah, they like that, tendon and all that. But for this dish, nice and cleaned up and ready to sear. Okay, so now like with this chicken breast here that I've already prepped, take this chicken breast. I'm gonna go right to where you see, like that. Now this is a much finer preparation for a chicken breast. You don't need to do this for a seared chicken breast. You can simply just season it and sear it. But with this preparation and the way we're going to do this plate, definitely want this. So again, slicing motion, down and back, smooth cuts, not sawing back and forth. We want very, very clean lines. Save this, don't throw it out. On this, I have some salt and pepper, which I put on my board as to not dip my hands directly into the salt and pepper, because that would cross-contaminate everything, and then you'd have to throw the whole thing salt and pepper out. So it's a nice little tip for the at-home cooks out there. Just put it on the board and then clean the board. Don't mess up your whole salt and pepper and give everybody salmonella because you cross-contaminate. So season these on both sides. Very lightly and gently. You don't need a ton of seasoning because we're going to add more flavor with the garlic. And so nice and seasoned up. What we need to do is go into a bowl. Now in this bowl is lemon zest and walnut oil. We're going to throw these chicken breasts into the bowl. Let's get rid of this bowl. Okay, so to add the little bit of garlic flavor we need, we're going to add about a half of a just about a half, maybe 3/4, depending on the size of the clove. Now, why am I not adding a lot? Because I only want a little bit of flavor in here from the garlic. I don't want the garlic to take over and be the sole member proprietor of this chicken. So now that that's in there, take your hands, you can wear gloves for this if you want, and give this chicken a really, really good mix. Get all that stuff coated around it. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now I have a piece of plastic wrap here, and we're going to take our chicken and wrap it up. Solidify this chicken. So you might be asking why wrap the chicken, why this process? So this is going to set the shape for our chicken. We're only going to put this chicken in water for a little bit just to set the outside shape. So what we're going to do is you're going to put it on here, roll over, and this stuff is great because it presses itself and seals over. Roll. You want to keep this very, very tight while you're doing this. And as you can see, as you go to roll, the chicken will form a cylindrical shape. That pinch, and then twist. Until tighter and tighter and tighter. Okay, there we are. Nice cylinder of chicken. Do the other two, and we're going to set this one aside. Okay, so I've got a pot of 180-degree water right here, and we're going to take our chicken and just drop these in. Now, if you sealed them pretty good and got all the air out, they will sink and they won't float. If you have pockets of air inside, they will float, so you might have to put a plate on top to keep them submerged. So about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, just to set the outside shape. And then we're going to let them cool for a bit just to kind of set the proteins as they cool, and we're going to unwrap them. Here we go. So just like this, you can put a little plate in there just to kind of keep them weighted down. You don't want to put too much because it will ruin the shape of them. So just a small plate. So now I have here the sweet potato and rice. And we're going to take the immersion blender. See how it's all starchy and poopy? Take the immersion blender and blend this up. Okay, so same as our other technique with the chip. I'm going to take this smooth mixture now, pour some on here. This will make a good amount, so you will not need to worry about having enough of this. And then just gently spread this out. Doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to be thin. Beautiful orange color from the sweet potato. And then we just have natural starches from the rice and the sweet potato in here. We do not have any tapioca, maltodextrin, any of that. It's starting to cool, it's starting to come up again on me. Okay. Okay, so into the oven, 215 degrees, and we're gonna let this dry out. Here we have our chicken all finished here. This is not fully all the way cooked, but as you can see, our shape has set very nicely. I'm gonna let this cool down to room temperature. You can let this cool down overnight if you want and save it for service or the next day, whenever you really need it. So we're gonna let this cool down, and then I'm gonna unwrap them, and we're gonna reserve them to the side until we are ready to sear our chicken breasts and make our pan sauce. Okay everybody, so on to our next step here. We're gonna go over some garnishes. I decided to make an additional component for the plate, which is going to be a lemon gel. So in this container right here, I have lemon juice, half an ounce of sugar, 2 ounces of lemon juice, 2 ounces of water, and a few saffron strands, and also a little pinch of salt. So what I'm going to do is make this into a lemon gel, and the way to do that is going to be with these two products. Here. Sodium citrate and methyl cellulose high viscosity. So a little bit about both of these. Sodium citrate is used, we're using this because the lemon juice typically has a pH of 2.5 to 3. So that's a little too acidic for our methyl cellulose here. So the methyl cellulose will not gel and activate if the pH of the liquid you're using is too acidic. It just won't happen. Chemically, it won't happen. So we're going to use a tiny bit, about a 1/4 teaspoon of sodium citrate to bring the pH up slightly. Not to eliminate the acidity, but just to bring it up a little bit, so our methyl cellulose will go to work. So the methyl cellulose is an agent that will allow this entire mixture to gel completely. And then what we're going to do is, after it gels, we're going to blend it with the immersion blender, and we're going to then put it through a sieve so it's nice and smooth, and then into a piping bag or a squeeze bottle, whatever you have at home or in your kitchen will work. And it's going to be a very smooth fluid gel with lemon and saffron flavor. So over here, I have a mixture of heavy cream, lemon zest, iota capuchin gum, and soy lecithin. So what I've done is I've steeped the lemon zest in the cream, added the carrageenan gum and the soy lecithin, brought it to a boil, strained everything out, strained the lemon zest out, and what it's done now is it's actually room temperature, so it has completely solidified, almost like a mousse. Okay, so just so you can see here, iota carrageenan, typically made from moss, and then we have the soy lecithin, which typically comes in lecithin. This is not soy lecithin all the time. Sometimes it could be just pure lecithin. It will say contains soy because there'll always be some kind of amount in here, but this is just a yellow powder. It will dissolve and you won't be able to see it. It's pretty much tasteless. And this is for an emulsifier, and this over here is for stability. Because what would happen with regular whipped cream, because we're going to be going through our canister, what would happen is it would deflate and melt very quickly due to the heat of the plate, and the chicken's going to be hot and the potatoes will be hot. So what we need to do is give that cream some stability, and in order to do that, the lecithin and the little bit of gum will create that stability that we need, but not give us a gumminess. So we have a nice smooth creaminess when we go to eat it. And I've actually tasted this just like it is now, and it's just like a beautiful smooth mousse. You wouldn't even know it was really thickened with anything, which is really, really great. So let's start off with our gel. Okay, so lemon gel. So a few things about the methyl cellulose. So hydration temp is it's cold soluble. The gel temp is 132 to 148 Fahrenheit. That's about 56 to 64 degrees Celsius. The melting temp, so that means when it melts into the liquid that you're using, is 132 degrees Fahrenheit or 56 Celsius. And the stable pH is 3 to 10. So then the viscosity range, 3,000 or 5,000 CPS at 2% in water. So that means the viscosity of this and 2% of whatever liquid that you're using. So if you have 16 ounces of liquid or say 10 ounces of liquid and you need 2% of the methyl cellulose, obviously 10% of 10 would be 1, 5% of 1 would be half, and then 2% of that would be 0.2. So that being said, you would need 0.2, you need to convert that, and it would probably be, so it was 0.2 of an ounce. The conversion for that would be probably around 2.5 grams. I'm just doing the math in my head right now. For our mixture here, we have literally like not even half a gram. I would say this is about 0.45 of methyl cellulose and about 1/8 of a teaspoon of the sodium citrate. So what I'm going to do here is add this into our mixture of lemon and water. Give this just a little bit of a mix. Kind of get things worked around here. Now you're going to see it's not really dissolving right away, but that's okay because our citrate hasn't begun to do its job yet. Now it's gotten shinier right away, so you can see it is starting to dissolve. Now I have a pan here that we need to, we're going to bring this mixture to a boil. So don't worry if you have a little bit of lumps or a little bit of cellulose here. All this is going to break up as soon as we heat this up. So I'm going to put this on the stove, bring this to a boil, and then we're going to strain this out. So we're going to work on our next component of the dish, which is going to be our espuma. Now espuma is a Spanish word that means to froth or foam. So that means that we're going to be pushing a liquid through a canister like this. And for this, what we're going to need to do is, now that it's gel, we're going to need to blend this into a smooth, almost like very thick, viscous liquid. So we're going to blend this, and we will add a tiny bit of water if necessary. Okay, so we have this nice and blended. You see now we have a viscous liquid, which is fantastic. It looks beautiful. I've tasted this and it's right on. It's awesome. So now what's great about using a canister is that this liquid can be put into the canister and then used whenever we need it. Now this can be used, this method with the canister can be used for espumas, can be used to froth up sauces, for foams, and anything you could really think of that goes through a canister, even just fresh whipped cream. So I'm going to add this to the canister. Okay everybody, I have my liquid in my canister container, and screw the top on. Just go over a little bit of the container with the body container, the top, the spout site, which is, they will give you a few of these different spouts typically with a good canister. They are stainless steel, and they would just screw on like this. Now one thing to notice here is there's a little O-ring on this. So main thing is you do not want to lose this when you go to wash this, because this makes the connection very, very snug and smooth, and your mixture will blow out of there with the gas pressure if that O-ring wasn't there. That would not be good. So the other side here is where our nitrogen gas would go, and typically you would have a canister like this, and then it would come with a cover for that said canister. Okay, so we would then pierce the canister and be ready to go. Now you can do that beforehand and have this to the side. We're not going to do that just yet because we have some other things to finish. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this on the counter, have this be room temperature for our plate, and then we'll pierce the canister in a little bit. So let's test out one of our small pieces. This oil is about $3.75, a little more. All right, let's try that. Now when you fry these, if you want to keep them flat, you're going to have to put something down on them. So let me show you here. See how I did that so it stayed flat? Beautiful. Okay everybody, so now we have our chicken here, nice and beautifully shaped. Now remember, it is about 3/4 of the way, halfway cooked. It is not fully cooked at this point. That's why we did this way, because we're going to be cooking it further and searing it and then basting it in butter. So we are definitely going to not want to cook this all the way, because then it would dry out in that process. So damp paper towel or something to dry them off. When you sear, you definitely don't want a lot of moisture involved. You want to achieve Maillard reaction and a lot of caramelization and browning and beautiful flavor and complexity forms when you sear correctly. So you're going to have a pan with about, I would say, 1 teaspoon to 2 of oil. You don't want a lot of oil when you're searing. You're not pan frying. When you're searing, you want just enough oil to keep it from sticking in the pan, and enough oil to create caramelization and Maillard reaction. So we're going a little bit below normal searing temperature today, because the chicken is already partially cooked. So I'm going to get this in this pan right here. Now what I'm going to do is make sure that the sides where it forms is down first. So it completely seals the chicken. Not that it already hasn't set up from our poaching process, but you definitely want the folded side to be seared first, just in case. Because remember, part of that isn't cooked, and then part of that protein is going to move around and expand in some kind of way. So now we have our chicken here. Now normally when we would sear, we would keep it in place and not move it. What you're going to want to do with this, because it's a round shape, is we want to get searing all the way around. So I would say about 1 minute, 45 seconds on each part, and then we're going to keep moving it as we go. Okay. Achieve some nice color. On our chicken, I'm going to take 3 cloves of smashed garlic and about 2-3 ounces of butter. And then we're going to begin our basting process. And all that beautiful garlic flavor is going to come out and be infused into that butter and be basted over that chicken. It's going to be beautiful. Side, tilt the pan, get them stationary and set, and then just baste that beautiful butter over them. It's going to keep them nice and moist, have some beautiful flavor from all of these brown bits, and the brown butter, and the caramelized chicken. If you could smell this right now. Okay, so now that we've got our chicken beautifully basted and brown, I'm going to put this in the oven for about 5 minutes at 350, just to kind of finish everything up, and then we're going to let it rest. Okay, so we've removed our chicken from the pan, and we have drained all of the oil and all of the butter. Now we have all these beautiful bits of caramelized chicken and garlic and milk solids from the butter, and it's going to now be turned into a sauce. Now, a lot of people would just throw this out at this point, but if you are a good chef, any good chef knows all the flavor is right here. So now, to make the pan sauce, I'm going to first start off with I would say about a tablespoon. It's about an ounce of minced onion. Now, typically I would like to use shallots. I just don't have any on hand right now. So what we want to do is give those quick sweat. So now our onions have begun to turn translucent. The reason why we mince them is because we need this to happen very, very quickly. Normally this would be done on the line right after you seared the chicken breast in a restaurant setting, and in a large quantity setting, you'd be deglazing a very big tilt skillet or flat top. So now that these are sweated out, you can see that some of our bits have started to come off the bottom due to the moisture from the onions, and we're going to end up lightly caramelizing all of this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of our caramelized mushroom and garlic, and this is all minced up. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this caramelize down a little bit now in this pan. Should be about 2 to 3 minutes. I'm going to add a bit of salt and pepper. Season throughout, season as you go, builds complexity. And we're almost there. As you can see how they have started to shrink down, and all the moisture has started to pull out of the onions and the mushroom. And the reason why we're doing this is because we're building flavor. We are compounding and layering on top of each other. We have the caramelized chicken bits, the milk solids caramelized from the butter. We have the caramelized onion and the caramelized mushroom and garlic. And next we're going to add a little bit of wine. So we're building and layering flavors into one harmonious, beautiful sauce. And a little culinary term while this is continuing to caramelize. The technical term for the bits in the bottom of the pan would be called fond. Fond, F-O-N-D. Okay, so now we're going to add our wine. Our beautiful wine. So I've picked out a Chardonnay for this, and typically with chicken or any kind of even pork or seafood, you want a white wine. Now, for this dish, when you have these flavors like this, this wine in particular happens to work very well. This is a Chardonnay. Now, what I did was I made sure that it was at least 2 years old. This was 2020. It is now almost the midway through 2022. So I would say about a year and a half, we're going to say respectively for this. The older the white grape, the better it gets as far as acidity goes. The acidity in this is a lot lower and a lot less tannic than your young white. Young whites are going to be bright and vibrant and acidic and full of flavor, but not full of complexity. Now, this in particular has loads of complexity. And when you're going to pick out a Chardonnay, the best way to do that, and the only way to do that, in my mind and in my opinion, is Russian River Valley. Those Chardonnays and coming out of that area is some of the best in the world. And some people would argue that it might be exactly the best in the world. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add about, I would say off heat, I'm going to add about roughly roughly about 2 ounces. About 2 to 3 ounces of wine. Now, could you flambe this and light this on fire? Yeah, but is it necessary? No, you don't need to do that. That's, a lot of that's for show. It's going to burn off either way. And what we're going to do with this now is reduce this wine in this pan all the way to what we call a sec, which means that everything will be absorbed into these onions and mushrooms, and the wine will have fully evaporated, and there will be like a tiny bit of syrup reduction in the bottom of the pan. You pretty much won't be able to see it if you do this right. So I'm going to bring this all the way down to sec, and then we're going to continue on with our next step in this pan sauce process. Okay, so we have taken this all the way down to sec, and everything is pretty much evaporated. There's a tiny bit of liquid moving around. So now, what I want to do is add some chicken stock. Now, chicken stock has a good amount of herbs and stuff already in it, so we haven't really added any herbs or anything like that to this. And we're going to add this chicken stock and then reduce this entire mixture. This is stir. Try to break up any more bits that haven't come off. Majority of all that fond just came right up when we added the wine. If it doesn't, when you add the wine, you can scrape like this to get those bits up, but typically that process will remove all those bits naturally. Okay, I'm gonna turn this up. Okay, so now we're going to bring this up to a boil, and we're going to reduce this by, I would say, about 3/4 until we have a nice thick consistency to our chicken stock and our sauce here. So the idea is that the chicken stock will reduce, concentrating the collagen and natural gelatin from the chicken bones that was in the stock in the first place, and concentrating all of the flavors that we have going on here. So all of the wine and caramelized bits of onion and mushroom and garlic are infusing into that chicken stock and then becoming the sauce while reducing down and concentrating those flavors. If you tasted it right now, it would taste good, but it would not be anywhere near where we need it to be. We're going to take this down to what we would call a gloss, which is very going to be a syrupy almost in consistency. A very nice reduction of all of our flavors here. This level of refinement for the dish that we are doing, it's about halfway now. We've got a good amount of flavor that's infused into our chicken stock and into our sauce. So I'm going to take this, it being halfway, I'm going to strain this sauce real quick. So now that this is strained, I'm going to reduce this now further. So you'll see here we have very nice, clean liquid that has beautiful flavor in it, lots of complexity. And we're going to reduce this now until we get a sauce-like consistency, almost to where it naturally thickens from all of the pectin that's been pulled out of the mushrooms and the onions and the gelatin and collagen from the chicken. Okay, so now we are almost where we want to be. And I've got our chicken here resting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of this gloss just with a brush and gently just brush on this gloss. What that's going to do is the gelatin and the collagen will give it a nice flavor and shine for our plate. Just a little bit. Some intense flavor just brushed on here to complement and amplify that chicken. See how it's nice and shiny now. Okay, so now we've got this exactly where we want to be. See how we start to have bubbles and everything coming up? Now this is just enough pan sauce for 2 plates. This is literally just enough for 2 plates. That's it. So we have our butter now. We're going to add our butter in there and start emulsifying our butter into our sauce. Now you could add cubes of butter, you can add a knob of butter like this. The main thing is just to keep moving this sauce around, moving this pan around, emulsifying that butter, and until it disappears without breaking that emulsion. So too high of heat, this will break and you'll have butter separate out. Too low, and it won't emulsify at all. You can see here, it's almost ready, almost there. See how it's changing color? It's lightening. Now the reason why we do this is because we need to round out all of those really, really sharp and intense flavors from our reduction. Right about there. Perfect. Perfect. Spoon. So this is what we want. Nice and beautiful. You'll see here, it coats the spoon. Do a little. That's exactly what you want. Beautiful, intense flavor. Alrighty, so there we have it, our little bit of sauce on the side. Beautiful consistency and flavor. Now without the butter and without the wine and everything, this would just be reduced chicken stock, would just be a chicken gloss or chicken demi-gloss. But this is actually infused everything and become a sauce. So that would be the little bit of the difference between, oh, that's just like chicken demi. No, it's not just chicken demi. It has a lot more going on. That's why it's a chicken pan sauce. Beautiful, beautiful, nice and shiny. Great consistency. This is gonna go very, very well with our plate. And again, this is just enough for about 2 plates. You would do this during a service, or if you were doing this like last minute, if you were a private chef or doing this for a couple, you know, say you're making them, you know, seared chicken breasts or whatnot, you would use this method for that. If you were doing this for a restaurant or something like that where you were doing a lot of chicken breasts, you would probably sear your chicken breasts before service, then take your pans, deglaze them, get all this rolling and have a pot to the side. And then when you go to fire your chicken breast off, when it gets ordered, that chicken breast is already seared, you're warming it back through, and you already have all your beautiful sauce and everything built up from the searing of the chicken beforehand. So the things work a little bit differently depending on where you're at, but typically that's how you would make a lovely pan sauce and be able to amplify all those natural flavors that have just come together from what we've been doing. Okay, so we have our Brussels sprouts here. We are just about ready to start plating up. We have to just finish off these last few components, which is one of them is the Brussels sprouts. And we're going to cook these, sear them in a pan. Remember, they're blanched already, and we're going to sear them in a pan face down. So all I've done is blanch these and season them with a little bit of salt and pepper. Be careful, this will pop due to the high moisture content in Brussels sprouts and due to them being blanched. I keep these as bright and vibrant as possible. So onto the stove. Okay, so you have to sear the Brussels sprouts and put them into the same container so we can transport and plate up much easier. And we're gonna keep them warm like this. Okay, so I've made something else as another component to the dish as well. I'm just going all over crazy today with things. This is chili oil and maltodextrin mixed together, and what this does is it makes a powder. So if I were to pick this up right here, this will dissolve instantly in your mouth when you go to eat it, and it is like a nice, that's really good. So this is a chili powder, actually, and it's gonna be just like you're eating a powdered donut, but with chili oil. So the flavor will then burst into your mouth. It'll melt immediately when you go to eat this. And here we have our final product of the sweet potato and rice chip, nice and beautifully light and flaky. It's gonna be a great crunch component to this dish. So for plating purposes, what we need to do is we need to take the ends off and make this look as beautiful as possible. So with a gentle slicing motion, get the ends off. Getting the whole range of the knife. Beautiful, beautiful. Nice, beautiful shape. And I'm gonna cut this once more. Beautiful. Now it's a chicken. So we're gonna do that with the other two pieces, and we're gonna be good to go for plate up. I'm gonna remove the gas canister cover. Nitrogen gas, only nitrogen gas in this. Do not use CO2 or anything else, only nitrogen gas for these foam canisters. So you wanna put this into here. This is gonna help protect your hand. God forbid anything happens with this canister when you pierce the needle here into the nitrogen. So make sure you're using this the proper way by inserting the gas canister into here first before we go putting it on here. So what I'm gonna do is just flip it and tighten down. You'll hear a little noise when you tighten this all the way down. That will tell you that the gas has gone through here. So let's see, let's give this a little discharge here real quick. Alrighty, you're coming out foamy. Nice. All right, perfect. So you see how the bubbles and it's nice and foamy? That's exactly what we want. So let's go plate up.